So coming back to the financial management portions, dear students, I will be dealing with the fifth module according to our syllabus. After completing the first and second modules, second module we had dealt with the problems based on capital budgeting. Now this fifth module, according to the university syllabus, it constitutes some portions from dividend and certain other portions from sources of long-term finance. These sources of long-term finance includes the portions like traditional and conventional source of long-term finance, innovative source of long-term finance, and some medium type sources of finance, etc. These are all theoretical portions which I will be sending you separate the theoretical notes. Anyway, what are the, let us now go through what are the various types of traditional sources of long-term finance. Traditional sources of long-term finance, as you know, by raising the equity capital, long-term finance will be done. Preference shares, issue of preference shares will be there. Retained earnings will be there, or plowing back of profit. There will be reserves kept by the organization. From that, the company may go for long-term finance, or they may use the funds. What do you mean by the sources of long-term finance? They will use these funds which are raised through equity, preference shares, or retained earnings for capital budgeting purposes or for further investments. That is why it is called as sources of long-term finance. So other traditional long-term finance apart from equity, preference shares and retained earnings or reserves includes debentures or bonds or debentures and bonds. Then they may go for term loans. There may be long-term loans and medium-term loans from government, financial institutions, non-banking financial institutions or non-banking financial companies, NBFCs, and public deposits. Sometimes the public directly, without investing in equity shares and preference shares, public directly go for investing into the companies. So these are traditional sources of long-term finance. There are other innovative sources of long-term finance or modern long-term finance, where the new companies are looking into. It involves venture funding. Venture funding is for the new business. Okay, new business, new ventures. There will be types of capital which may require like seed capital, startup capital, early stage capital, expansion capital, late stage capital, etc. These are all pure theoretical portions. So while venturing new companies or new business or new projects, there is separate funding which are included in the long-term finance, which may include the capital like seed capital, startup capital, early stage capital, expansion stage capital, and late stage capital. And this venture capital is also sometimes called as private equity. Other long-term innovative sources of finance includes international financing through Exim banks, export-import banks. We may take long-term loans through euro currency market. The corporates may issue euro bonds or euro issues. Through international financial institutions, the issue of shares will be in the form of ADR, American Depository Receipt, Global Depository Receipt, GDR, etc. See, these are instruments which are used, or equity which are raised through foreign investors. While investing in foreign companies, or the foreigners, when they invest in Indian companies, the shares will be floated in the form of ADR or GDR. Then another innovative source of long-term finance is loan syndication. Okay, loan syndication involves group of lenders together. They arrange long-term finance for a single person or a single party or a single corporate. So they will collaborate together, and the group of lenders, sometimes it will be 3 or 4 non-banking financial companies, they will join together, or 3 or 4 group of financial institutions, they will join together and lend That is called as loan syndication. Why they are going for this type of investments? It may be for acquisition of a company or buyout, etc. The corporates may depend on loan syndication. So these are the things which we want to go through the fifth module, theoretical portion, sources of long-term finance, that is traditional long-term finance and innovative sources of long-term finance. Traditional, as I told, includes equity, preference, retained earnings or plowing back of profit, debenture and bonds and other term loans from government, financial institutions, non-banking financial institutions, public deposits, etc. Whereas the innovative financial sources or innovative sources of long-term finance includes venture capital, private equity, international financing through Exim banks, euro currency markets, international financial institutions, depending upon the international finance. For example, sometimes may depend upon World Bank, IDBI, etc. Okay, so those institutions are there. Sometimes we may go for issuance of ADR, GDR, and some other sources of fund is loan syndication. Apart from these portions, you have in the fifth module certain other medium-term financing. What is medium-term financing? Rather than going for taking long-term borrowings, company may also opt for asset-based financing or medium-based financing. That includes hire purchase financing, then leasing, project financing, etc. What is leasing? These are all asset-based financing. But there are three types of medium-based financing which the module is focusing on. One is leasing, then second one is hire purchase, and the third one is project financing. Leasing. The owner of the asset gives another person the right to use the asset, again a particular periodic payments. That is called as leasing. Who is the owner of the asset? The lessor. He is called as a lessor. The lessor will give to another person the right to use his assets based on periodical payments for using that asset, lease rent. That is called as leasing. You might have heard about leasing. Many companies, for example, agricultural companies, agricultural products companies, they may lease the land from the particular landowners, and the landowner will be called as lessor and the company will be known as lessee, and based on the periodic payments which is called as lease rent, they may raise what the funds required for the organization. That is another source. So through asset based also, without borrowing long term, we could go for leasing. That is why it comes under the category of medium term financing. Leasing is there. Similarly, through hire purchase, we could acquire the asset. Similarly, project financing. What is project financing? Project financing is sometimes we may entrust a particular project company to set a particular project where they will finance the entire projects. We will not raise the funds. The project company will raise the funds, and they will go for investment. It is called as project financing. There is something called factoring, which is there in the syllabus. What is factoring? Factoring is a part of short-term financing. That is the receivables part of the company. Okay, receivables part, the amount which we have to get from debtors is called as receivable part. Receivable part of the company will be sold to another financial company. That is called as factoring. That is, business sells its bills receivable or accounts receivable to a third party called factor at a particular discount rate. It is called as factoring. Once more I will tell. There will be a lot of debtors for the business where the debtors have to pay some money to us. That is called as debtors or bills receivable. We have to get lot of collection. The company will be in the possession of getting lot of collection due from the debtors, which may be in the form of debtors itself or bills receivable. That will be sold to another company who is called as a factor. It's a third party. They will do all functioning. For example, IT companies are all having factoring business because they cannot run behind all the global customers and find out what is the amount due to them for the services rendered. So they will entrust this function to another banking company or non-banking company who will be called as a factor. They will do the collecting process. They will do the debtors process for the company and they will collect the money. That is called as factoring. That is another theoretical part. Then there is something called what are the what are the meaning of what are the terms which terms like corporate governance, financial engineering, etc., which is dealt with by in the fifth module. So what is financial engineering? I will explain. Financial engineering is application of mathematical techniques or tools. Very important. The term financial engineering means application of mathematical tools or techniques to solve the financial problem. Application of mathematical techniques here means matrix theory, sometimes linear algebra, probability, calculus, some programming languages like C++, Python, etc. are used in the financial problems, are used to solve the financial problems. This financial engineering is actually, a development of new financial instruments also is a part of financial engineering. For example, there is something called exotic swaps or travel swaps or contingent swaps, etc. Those things are as a part of financial engineering. New financial instruments will develop because of the mathematical application of the models and mathematical tools like algebra, linear algebra, or matrix theory, probability, statistics, etc. are used in the finance or finance problem. To solve the finance problem, it is called as financial engineering. It's again a theoretical part. Now another theoretical part which is there in the fifth module is what is corporate governance. You are very familiar with this term corporate governance because it's there in the other subject, management subjects. What is corporate governance? In a simple word, it means the rules, process, bylaws, etc. used in business for regulating the effective functioning of business, which may affect the interest of the stakeholders. Let me explain once more. Corporate governance are the rules, procedures, process, bylaws, etc. used in the business in order to control the interest, in order to control or improve the interest or protect the interest of the stakeholders. It is the simplest definition which is used for corporate governance. All the companies have to follow the corporate governance policies adopted according to its own registration process. For example, foreign companies, they have to look into certain corporate governance amendments or acts, legal acts are there. For example, Sarbanes-Oxley Act. It is one of the acts where companies like Infosys follow. What it indicates? It indicates that in order to interest the interest of the stakeholders, here includes the shareholders, the public, the banks, and all authorities who are interested in the company's affairs. Okay, in order to protect the interests of the stakeholders, that they are working according to the company. In Indian companies, it's working whether it is working according to SEBI rules, Securities Exchange Board of India rules, or Companies Act 1913, etc. Certain norms and regulations have been enacted. That is called as corporate governance. So foreign companies have Sarbanes-Oxley Act 2002. So in Indian companies, we are following Companies Act 1913 rules regarding corporate governance. SEBI Kotak Committee is used for corporate governance. Okay. Then Institute of Chartered Accountants of India is applying its own rule for corporate governance. We are ensuring that whether it is being practiced by the company. Indian Company Secretaries of Institute of Company Secretaries of India is applying the corporate governance rules. Ministry of Corporate Affairs gives certain rules. National Guidelines for Responsible Business Conduct rules are applied by the Ministry of Corporate Governance for implementing the corporate governance effectiveness. Okay, there is something called CERP Act, Corporate Law Economic Reform Program, Audit Perform Corporate Disclosure Act, which is a part of corporate governance. There is something called Cadbury Committee, UK report 1992. OECD rules are there. Organization for Economic Cooperation and development rules are there for ensuring the corporate governance policy. So it's all theoretical part where you have to understand that these are the rules, procedures, bylaws, etc., which the business have to follow in order to protect the interest of the stakeholders. So that is another portion which is mentioned in the fifth module theoretical part. Next video you could see dividend theories and dividend regulations and policies in the which is included in the fifth module. Thank you.